We'll call our meeting to order.
I thought we were already in order.
Oh, we are.
Yeah, we're continuing, but
Okay, well, I just wanted to say
Thank
the
you for making me feel
Pledge of
important.
Allegiance again.
that's right.
I wanted to take you at it. You're right, it's just a continuation. Okay. So we're,
So we're at the final budget hearing. And first item is the trustees' financial summary report. This is a report that Mrs. Mason will go over with the Board of Trustees. Just so that you know, following this meeting or board accepting the final budget report, she has 5 days to file it with the county. So with that, I'll let Mrs. Mason take over this one.
okay, and apparently, I apologize, but Mel, can you share the trustees?
Oh, sure.
What are there? So of course, the trustees' financial summary is a summary of all financial activity in the district for last year. And what I have done up to this date is the budgeted funds, and you'll see the reporting, it's all of our revenue versus all of our expenditures, where our cash balances are to date. And from this is where we turn around and get the numbers for our next year's budget, seeing any amounts that we appropriated that we'll need. So anytime you see the budget report, the balance sheet, the trustees' financial summary for those funds has been complete with the schedule of revenues, changes, and expenditures. So you can take a look, and there are obviously the ones that are funds here that the school does not have, and those won't be done. And then a couple of them that have not been completed yet, but are not budgeted funds, and so they don't relate to our budget report. So, I was just going to say, is there...
Let's go through the balance sheets.
The balance sheets, yeah. If there's any questions, please don't hesitate. In the general fund, that cash and investment, that very first line is our actual cash balance, and that balance balances with the exact same fund in the Valley County, where all our funds where I have to balance every month. The taxes receivable lines 2 and 3. Those are taxes that they are expecting but have not received yet. The number 5 is a due from other governments for us because we are a split district. That means it's the Missoula County taxes that were received after July 1. And for us that happens every year because Missoula gives us our revenues, but they don't get deposited into Valley County's account until the month after. So every year you'll see that we have a due from other governments. This year, as we talked about, Missoula County was a little further behind, and so there are actually 2 months worth of revenues that are due from. And so those are located right there. Other current assets, for us that is an account at the Farmers Bank that we run all our payroll through. We dump the direct deposits in there, and then our payroll taxes are automatically removed from there. And so we usually have a balance right around $2,100, and that's just from interest over years and years of that account having the payroll taxes. The payroll taxes usually sit there for about a day, and then they're dumped in, and then IRS takes them right out. And then inventories, and for us, we've always included our paper inventory at the end of every year. It's about the only thing that we really count as an inventory. Food service has their own separate inventory that you'll see on there. But that's what we have for assets. It's actually fairly simple.
Paper inventory?
Our big paper order, yeah, we did it. Sarah does a paper order, $11,000 worth of paper at the end of every year.
Okay.
And yeah. So it's fairly basic. There's not a lot of other things in there. You'll see that the deferred revenue is just a combination of lines 2 and 3 on top. And then it repeats down on the bottom of the inventory, and it comes up with what our actual total liability and fund balance is, which is at $885,548.42. If we go through each one, the transportation is the same, the cash balance, That's where we're sitting in our cash balance, which balances with the Valley County. And we go through the same, different numbers, same thing, $36,000. That is revenue from Missoula County that was received after July 1. And deferred revenue goes back up to lines 2 and 3. There's actually not as much in the transportation fund as there is in the general fund as far as line items. And then total liabilities and fund balance there is $150,768.76. The food service is one that I was just starting. It's not a budgeted fund, but you can just see where it sits on the balance sheet at this point. I believe I also included it in the more detail on the back so you can see where we were. We had talked a little bit about us losing almost $12,000 in the food service, and you can see that in the back sheets. Our tuition fund, that's fairly simple. We only make 2 payments out of that fund every year, so it's basically cash balance from year to year. So you'll see it's $15,133.69. And we don't have any.
You said that was tuition fund?
Yeah, it is a tuition fund.
How would I know that from looking at this?
Top. It says tuition fund at the very top, and then it's 13. Our tuition fund is 213.
You need to go to page 3, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then so that's our cash balance there, and that's a fund also that is rarely used. Do not have to.
Yeah, it's on page 3,
See, it goes from school services
Okay, I got
to
you.
tuition.
I'm sorry. All right, I'm going back to teacher.
This tuition fund is strictly for any students that we pay for to attend any other type of co-op or school district in town, and we've only had a couple of those, usually every year.
Yeah, for example, if we get a deaf or blind child in requires services that we do not have the interpreters for, then we can get an agreement with the district nearby us, and we can have that service available to them, and plus the child in, so they can receive services per IEP.
Is that where the guy winds up in jail, this funds to?
Yes.
Yes. We have to.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's fun. We have the retirement fund, of course, which pays everybody's, anything that has to do with retirement for any of our employees or workers, of course, comes out of this fund. Cash balance at the end of June 30th was $213,156.91. And the only activity really in there is the due from, and that's from Missoula County. On both the transportation and retirement funds, which county superintendent told us last year would probably be short, and they were short as far as revenues coming in according to our expected budget. We do carry a cash balance, so there was no negative. We still are carrying a cash balance. It's just we were shorted. I think they collected 88% of the retirement fund and 94% of the transportation this year. So that's how much we were short in those two. The general fund ended up for the first time since I've ever done this job coming in right on target, which had never happened. And then on top of that, of course, we have the student who came in and paid the tuition to us, which goes in the general fund. Usually turns around and goes into the reserves. It's there to help you keep your school going, so it turns around and dumps into the reserves. So
The student that paid the tuition was the child that came with the
under the
CES
CES.
application.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to give you a little update on how those ended up. Our adult education fund is very basic as well. It has a cash balance of $71.26. On the next page is our technology fund. Cash balance $28,084.58. There's a little bit that's due from Missoula County, and that's the activity that there's not much that comes in and goes out, and that's really that account as well. Our debt service fund, which we've been talking about for the last few years, we will no longer have, as you see in the budget report, there's no budget, there won't be a budget for it because we've paid off our bond. The 20-year bond is now paid off. We do have a balance in the debt service fund. We do have the due from Missoula County. And the final balance in the end will be $72,614.10. And according to OPI guidelines, they will let us know how we can distribute that into other accounts. They do have different guidelines, only specific ways or specific transfers you can transfer money when your debt service fund is done. So I have that to do in September. Make sure we figure out what our options are with that, and then bring it to the board, and we'll have to decide what we want to do with that excess money.
How much will be the excess? At the bottom?
Yep, $72,614.10. And again, since that was used, can only be used and dispersed back into specific budgets, and OPI will let me know exactly what our options are with that. And then we have the building reserve fund that stayed at $1.04 since I've been here. And we don't ever use that $1.04. It's been there. It's probably one that we should close out. Have the $1.04 be distributed to another fund. Just because it's always been that amount since I've come in here. The following pages on the trustees' financial summary are exactly what it says: schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And so the top part of each of these are exactly how much money we received and from which areas. The revenue codes on the side in the description show you exactly where our monies are coming from. Shows the R monies also that came in. You can see those at the bottom. They wanted those separated out. And of course the general fund is the largest one, and that has all the expenditures that are broken out into every coding category for us. And of course, there's the schedule of expenditures and revenues for each of the funds.
Julie, so these, so when we were talking about, we had all the levies and
Yep.
that's revenue coming in, and then the next section is that expenditures
All the
going out.
expenditures, yep. And we have revenue, and you see the top part of it says current expenditures, other financing uses, and residual equity transfers out, which basically, for us, is just expenditures. And it's broken down into each line item. And you can see as we've talked about several times, salaries is our biggest expense, and you can see that in each of the 1XX is salaries, and so you can see that's where we do most of our spending.
And that, in instruction, that went down quite a bit.
It did.
10 and 11.
Well, it did because it didn't really go down, it's just coded differently. It's that ARA money. They requested, if you look at the revenues, the $229,611, that was separated out as revenue, and they also requested it to be separated out as an expenditure. So you'll see that at the very end of the general fund. So the 229,611.51 and the 191, those were all in salaries as well. But they, as our monies, they were required to be coded as such. So yeah, if you added the very first with 2.361 million and those two ARA amounts, you look that it would be higher than the number on the previous one. And so from all this, again, all this information is transferred over into where we start doing the budgeting for the following year.
But the new software is a lot better than the old stuff you used to work with.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's special.
Yep. especially this, it actually comes out with a lot of figures right out of the gate instead of hand doing it.
Like with any new software, there's still parts of it we learn.
Yeah,
Trying to
sure.
understand the full